Hello everybody and welcome back to, I was going to say PSVR2 news then, but it's not. Today's video is talking about this month and how it's gone down on PSVR2, because this is possibly the most stacked month we've had for the headset, and I wanted to do a little retrospective at the end of this month, which we don't usually do. Usually we move on to the next month, which we will be doing when December rolls around. We'll be talking about what to expect in that month. I've said the word month about a billion times already in this video. There's plenty that came out in November, and I want to do a little roundup because it's more than usual, and I managed to play almost everything that came out. Not quite everything, but almost everything. So let's thank our patrons and members. You feel free to like and subscribe if you feel like it, and let's get into this. At the start of November, I thought that there was a ton to look forward to. Sure, there was a bit of shovelware like Abyss Backrooms Pool VR, which was very clearly a Pool's knockoff, which we'll get into in a minute, but for the most part it looked like quality titles releasing back to back to back. And ultimately that's what we've gotten. If you have a favourite game out of the ones that I'm going to mention today and go through and kind of overview, then let me know in the comments below, because there are a ton for this month. We kicked it off with Of Lies and Rain, and I really liked this. Not quite as much as some other reviewers and other players. Some people loved absolutely everything about Of Lies and Rain, and I think I can understand why. It's a small team, they put a ton of work into this, and they have punched well above their weight. This was definitely an indie title though. People saying this is the next AAA PSVR2 game were just wrong, and we knew that from the get-go. However, it did impress in a lot of different ways. For the most part, for me, it was interactions and physics, just felt spot on for the most part. I did get a little bit bored of the same visual style all the way through, but the assets did change, it's just the color palette. But I imagine as a small team, art direction is difficult when you're trying to do a 7 to 8 hour long game. I did my impressions at the start of the month where I'd played about 4 or 5 hours of the game if I remember right, and by the end of it, my position didn't really change. I had my issues with the game design and the narrative format of how it's presented to you, mostly in text, but it was a banger to start the month off with, and I'm very sad that it's not done that well on PSVR2, at least for now. Sold around 1,000 copies, at least according to the devs. What we needed after Of Lies and Rain was a shorter palette cleanser, in my opinion, something to get your adrenaline going and remind you of the immersiveness of VR, not just in storytelling like Of Lies and Rain does, but in terms of gameplay and adrenaline, and that is Rush Apex Edition. Came out a couple days later, and this is a PSVR 1 port and PC VR and Quest port we've been asking for a very long time. Sure, it might not look the prettiest because of the year it was made in, but it definitely has had some visual upgrades since then, and the overall style does still hold up. I played this both in single player and multiplayer, and it was so much fun. Soaring through trees, mountains, valleys, over lava, and seeing all this with the OLED panels and feeling the rush of the wind with the headset haptics really made this one something to pay attention to in November, and I really enjoyed playing it. Same can be said for V-Racer Hoverbike. Shadow dropped on November 4th, making that day an incredibly busy one. But this came along with PSVR2 Day, which announced a bunch of new stuff, including Shadowgate the Mines of Mithrock's release date, which turned out to unfortunately be delayed, along with an updated look at Out of Sight VR, Rager, Roboquest, which did release, which we'll get into in a minute, and Audio Trip, which also released this month, that I haven't actually played. But V-Racer Hoverbike was that Wipeout Omega style itch that I was kind of craving to have on PSVR2, and finally we got it in the form of this one. Doing loop-the-loops and blasting through the neon racetracks with the OLED panels is something to behold. And so far in this month, each game has been in a different genre, whether it be sports, story and sci-fi, and now traditional racing, albeit hovering. There was a ton to enjoy already. Lumina's Arise came around, and I really enjoyed this presentation too. It isn't my style of game, the block breaking stuff. I'm not very good at puzzlers or quick thinking like that in terms of those games strategically, but I've started to get a little bit better at it. I've played it some in the flat and some in VR, and in this VR game, and in the VR mode, your mind is just blown by how immersed you are into these experiences and the atmosphere of Lumina's. Again, this was a completely different genre, and I don't know if we've had this much variety in a single month on PSVR2 since launch, to be honest. Maybe on launch day there have been that many different games, because that was when everything kind of came out at once and filled the store, but since then, over a month scale, this might be the most diverse group of games that we've had. And adding to this was Richie's Plank experience, which was more of a traditional VR experience from, say, 2017, I think it was, asking you to walk the plank and test your VR legs. I really enjoyed this one too. This is a great demo game to put friends and family on, provided that you make sure they don't fall over. We've all seen the videos, right? But it was yet another example of another game being put in there that fills its own little niche. And after this, we had back-to-back-to-back bangers, in my opinion, with Roboquest, which despite being reprojected, that did suck a little bit. The rest of the game is absolutely phenomenal. The haptics, the music, the combat, the movement, the enemy design. It's amazing. It feels like it's built for VR. It is so much fun. Even if you don't like roguelites that much, kicking ass in this one feels awesome. Directly after that, another banger with Demio x D&D. This one, however, has had some issues post-launch with multiplayer, with people joining lobbies. I can't say I've run into this so far, but some people have. But I did run into the bug where lobbies start to disband and kind of desync towards the end of like a 2-hour play session, eventually resulting in your disconnection. The actual game underneath this, though, is bloody fantastic. I liked Demio, but its combat-heavy focus made it kind of a one-trick pony for me. But Demio x D&D is exactly what I was looking for in terms of the evolution of that formula, introducing story elements and questions to be asked and choices to be made. It was just another complementary game to slip in here that does something completely different to the rest of those that came out this month so far. Again, another game I can attribute that to is Mobile Suit Gundam Silver Phantom that came out just one day later on the 21st out of nowhere. There it was on the store. A very cheap, cinematic, VR story game that is more like an interactive movie. There aren't actually that many gameplay elements, but as an interactive movie, it looks awesome. The depth and color in the OLED panels is complemented by a silky smooth, buttery non-reprojected frame rate, and even though I've not really immersed myself into any of the Gundam media before this, I truly enjoyed my time with this one as a newcomer to the franchise. Finally, rounding off this in terms of the games that I have played, PSVR came out as the latest release of the month. This one isn't going to be for everyone, but again, it's a completely different genre to the rest of these, an atmospheric walking sim in the backroom sort of universe. Great audio, an unsettling vibe. The visuals do have issues with aliasing, but they're still pretty damn sharp at their best. And overall, just an immersive and unforgettable experience that when I jump into this in the flat, because it is a flat and VR game, it just pales in comparison. On top of all this were two games that I didn't actually get around to trying this month, which were Audio Trip and Hotel Infinity. One being a beat game and one being a puzzler. Yet again, two kind of different sort of games to the rest of these on the list. I've heard good things about both of these to an extent, but I am yet to try them. So for November, we've had so much. We've had 12 releases, of which 10 I've covered, and one that was unfortunately delayed into December, so that's a release every couple of days. Crazy stuff. We're eating good here on PSVR2, and I've loved all of these games to some extent this month so far. I don't think December will be quite as strong, but we do have Thief VR to look forward to, and I'll be there with a review. It's going to be a bit of a tough one. I am leaving for Iceland this Saturday for 4 days. If any of you are watching from Reykjavik, then hello, I'm going to be in your city for a little while. But I return on the 2nd, so either I'll get a key this week and try and bang it out before I leave, or I'll try and finish it from the night of the 2nd when I arrive until the 4th, where hopefully the embargo will be, for my sake. But we shall see. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you've enjoyed this month. I just wanted to put together a little video to celebrate all the good stuff that we've had in November. And let's look forward to December. Bye-bye.